Wanted to go ahead and drop a quick message off to you guys in regards to something I was reflecting on. As per usual, I'm a very reflective, introspective person, so I'm sure none of you are mistaken, at least those of you who really know me. If you don't know me yet, get to know me and you'll realize that. But I wanted to talk about disillusionment, right? And just being real with yourself and not deluding yourself into thinking that you're on a path that you're not. I read it in a book saying that a lot of people just go down this highway, just continuing to convince themselves that they're heading somewhere that they're not, you know, until they actually realize that they aren't on that road. Essentially, they are set up for distraction, which eventually leads to destruction. And that's part of my notes that I jotted down too. And it's so true. You know, a lot of times people are just, they're tapped into this grid of mediocrity, of deluding themselves or distracting themselves to death, essentially, you know, with Netflix binges. And again, if you're a Netflix binge, I'm not coming after you, but essentially, hopefully you get to a point where you realize that that's not necessarily productive, right? If you are looking to get from point A to point B. Now, I do think rest is productive. You know, I'm a big proponent of that. You know, I always make sure that I take my time to rest, but make sure you actually are doing things in that time that is actually replenishing you, that's actually feeding you and your spirit. Because a lot of times the things that we call replenish or rest just really drain us more. You know, I know for me, if I sit all day and Netflix binge, I know there's gonna come a point where I'm gonna be sick of it, sick of myself. I'm probably gonna look at it as a wasted day and just know that I probably could have done a few more things and then maybe had like a small subset of my time being set to that versus having the entire subset of my time being set to, you know, Netflix binging and just watching these shows over and over that really, if you notice, even the nature of Netflix, it's starting to apply to the user more to keep you there, you know? So it's like, hey, you still watching? Or, you know, based off of what you watched yesterday, here's another series. So it's constantly trying to keep you plugged into that. And just be careful. Be careful of the things that are meant to keep you stagnant, right? This whole topic of disillusionment comes from a conversation I had recently with someone who I walked into the break room with, right? And any job that I've had so far, whenever I go into the break room, at least over the last handful of years especially, I've been heavy on my health, heavy on eating right, you know, and obviously, of course, if you watch my stories, you'll see that I throw in some balance there, you know, some takeout every now and then, some sushi. I don't really see that as cheat meals.
There's obviously a lot of carbs in that because all the rice.
At the end of the day, it's like I set my diet up to where on my cheat days I can go hard, right? So again, no one's saying to not watch Netflix or not have cheat days, but at the end of the day, just make sure you're not cheating more than anything, right? Again, it's all about being real, because sometimes people are cheating on their diet and they don't even know that they're cheating on their diet, you know, and I can fall victim to this just as much as you can, right? I'm not speaking from this standpoint of like, oh, I got it all figured out, right? I was in the break room and, you know, usually for me, my meals attract attention right away and kind of arrest the attention of people who aren't, you know, the healthiest, right? Usually I'm on Brussels sprouts, I'm on chicken, I'm on butternut squash or sweet potato or asparagus or broccoli, you know, just kind of mixing all those things. And I just cycle, like, what am I gonna have as my greens? What am I gonna have as my carb intake? And what am I gonna have as my protein intake? And just to make sure that I'm hitting all areas. And then the micronutrients can be filled in with fruit and so on and so forth. So anyways, I'm in the break room and I'm minding my business. You know, I'm real good at minding my business and I won't say anything, just greet you and keep it moving. And one of the managers were like, oh, I'm really craving, you know, a chocolate cake.
And I was like, okay, cool, you know.
Do your thing. And she's like, yeah, I've been eating extremely well lately. Now, that right there threw me off, right? And again, no judgment, but I was just like, wow, I would like to know what eating extremely bad is then, right? Because I've watched this lady for days, you know, for that last week, I should say, eat Jimmy John's like 3 times a week. I've seen her chew down like a greasy sandwich. I don't know what it was, but it looked like the ends were deep fried, and then I think it was like a Reuben or whatever with corned beef inside. And again, that's far from extremely well, but I was just like, okay, there's probably a lot of people who delude themselves into thinking that they actually are eating well, they actually are working out consistently. And my mentor always says, and again, mentors, best friends, my mentors are my best friends. They were mentors first and then became best friends through that relationship being built, right? A lot of people mix the two up. They have best friends and then they just get advice from those people because they've known them for a very long time. If that's the only litmus test that you have before you call somebody a mentor, that's very dangerous, right? Because at the end of the day, for me, a mentor is someone who's further ahead in life than you, right? And someone that you can learn from, someone that you can glean from, and someone that essentially you are open to learning and gleaning from fully, so that you can then trade places with them, right? If you wouldn't trade places with the person who you get advice from, be careful if you're calling them your mentor, right? I have a brother, I have parents. I don't consider them my mentors because they are not in a spot in life where I want to be, right? And in fact, it's the reverse, right? They can actually learn a lot more from me than I can from them. That's not arrogant at all. That's just facts. The more that we deal with the facts, I think the more that we can actually move forward, right, in a healthy fashion. So first of all, when it comes to being guided, I think it starts with being real, right? You got to be real with yourself, where you are and where you're not. Because if you know where you're not, then you know where you're starting from, so that you can then get to where you want to be. But if you're convincing yourself that you're someone that you're not, then it's like no one can help you because you don't even want to help yourself. I put down in my notes, I actually said, in order to gain real friends, you have to give them or grant them real access, right? So my coaches, my best friends, my mentors, I grant them access into my life. I ask them very vulnerable, open, and honest questions. And I don't do that with everybody. I just do it specifically with them because they've earned that trust from me, that vulnerability from me, right? I'm not gonna open myself up to someone else who, again, doesn't have the wherewithal, doesn't have the discernment, doesn't have the lifestyle, the legacy, doesn't have the things that I'm looking for. If they're not fit, and again, physically, but then also mentally, emotionally, if they're not healthy in those areas, why would I seek advice from them? Right? So I was able to draw I was able to discern those lines and not blur them way sooner than later. I'd say since I was 17 or 18. I posted in my recent story how I was like in parking lots, literally pulling that Wolf of Wall Street segment, where he was like, you show me a pay stub that you made $72,000 last month and I quit my job today. And again, it's not about the money, but it's about the energy, right? It's like, obviously I have something to learn from you, so I'm gonna shut up and I'm gonna learn what I need to learn from you to get to where I need to be, right? But again, you have to be real to grant that real access, right? And you can't just say, oh yeah, give me feedback, I'm open to feedback, and then when you get the answers that you're not expecting, you get upset and then you cut that person off, right? That's actually the person, at least for me, that I gravitate towards and that I'm more thankful for, because they're willing to give me the honest, raw, uncut truth, not disregarding my feelings, understanding, hey, that may hurt your feelings, but I'd rather hurt your feelings, right? Because a cut can heal, right? Versus harm you, meaning letting toxic things just fester. That friend that you see next to you that's always eating junk food, you may not want to hurt their feelings by telling them like, dude, you're getting super fat, you're eating way too much junk food on a consistent basis, you are doing the most right now, I'm worried about you, right? That may hurt them, depending on how you say it. You don't have to call them fat, right? But regardless, because it's the truth. But at least that gets them to a point where they're like, you know what, you're right. Maybe they may combat you for that moment or in that moment, but later on they actually start to make the changes. And I actually have a gentleman that I mentor who does the same thing, who's going through the same scenario. I never approach it like that, but I was like, dude, you really need to start eating healthier, because like it's not a game. Like, it's just a matter of time before you start having some major health concerns. 2-3 years later, he actually started realizing that and actually started reenacting, or I should say acting out, the advice that I had given him, right? And now he's on top of it and he's learning more about fitness and health and so on and so forth. And it's like, if I passed away today, at least I know that I got that man on the right path, you know what I mean? And more so, he got himself on the right path because he eventually got real with himself. So again, just wanted to drop that message really quickly. It's all love. I hope this makes sense. Let me know if you guys have any thoughts, any questions, any feedback. I'm definitely open to it. Love you guys.